Like I remember a teammate going like, "Yeah, we're gonna finish first," and I was like, "It's like you're gonna be an All-American," and I didn't even think about that. And I remember I was like, "You think we're gonna be the number one ranked team in the country? You're like our leading goal scorer, you're our best player. Of course you're gonna be an All-American." It kind of was like, "Oh wow!" Like, and we didn't have any room for error. Like we had to win out to the national title for him to kind of go out on top as the all-time winningest coach plus with the national title, and that's what we did.
All right. Welcome, Vijay Dias, to the Young Athletic. How you doing today?
Good, man. Thanks, Patrick, for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited. We met maybe a year or two ago, and someone told me about your background playing at Indiana University,
Yeah.
a national champion there for soccer. I also did a little bit more research, saw you state champion in high school
Yeah.
as well.
Two states.
Two states
Yeah.
in Montana,
In Montana and Kentucky.
Kentucky. Awesome. Well, where do you want to start? We got Indiana University, we got Montana. What do you want to talk about first?
Oh man, let's talk about Montana
All right.
because I was just telling you I watched the Brawl of the Wild, which
Yeah.
is University of Montana, Montana State, American football game, and yeah, that's where I was born and raised. Got a lot of love for the place. Not the typical hotbed for soccer.
Yeah.
But my dad was a foreigner. He came actually to Montana in 1960, and was one of the first guys who founded the University of Montana soccer team. All these foreign guys came in,
Really?
and yeah, sort of in the 60s and 70s, he played. He drew out a long collegiate career.
Okay.
So
Okay.
like a lot of foreigners do,
Awesome.
keep the student visa going. So
Yeah.
but yeah, it's cool, man. So that's really, with him, he and I, that was one of our first things we really bonded on, was soccer and the passion of the game and having that way bigger worldview of like what the game means all around the world. And of course, having like a mom who's from Montana and a dad who's from like halfway around the world, it was important for me to like, it's special to like keep that greater worldview intact, and soccer was a big part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
What about like, the Montana side of it? Because that's not as worldly as one might think.
yeah, I mean the Montana side of it is great. I mean, I love the place.
What's like Montana like? I've never been.
I mean, most people have this nowadays have an idea through like pop culture, Yellowstone, whatever, which I've never watched, so I shouldn't speak.
Yeah.
But like the cowboy stuff and the open spaces. Yeah, I'm really like in love with Montana's landscape and the open space and the beauty of it. And like it's shaped my strong feelings of conservation and keeping the environment clean. And as like in California, you get like beautiful beach lines. Like you
Yeah.
don't want these things messed up. They're so precious. So, but Montana, it creates and forges strong people because you got to endure those winters.
Yeah.
Long winters. I remember growing up playing soccer, we would have snow probably as early as September and sometimes like as late as, I remember state cups like Memorial Day, like late May, getting a snowstorm and games getting canceled and stuff. So you can have pretty drastic extreme weather, and then it gets hot in the summertime. So it's like all over the place.
That's gnarly. Yeah. I dated a girl from Alaska one time, and I went up there and it just felt like the edge of the world.
Yeah.
But it was June, and I had to wear a sweatshirt.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
At nighttime.
And during the day.
During the day?
During the day.
Whereabouts?
Just north of Anchorage.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's cool.
yeah. I also spent a little time in
You're a
in
Cali
Boston.
guy, though,
Yeah.
right?
So I enjoy the flip-flop weather
Yeah,
and
for sure.
the beach.
Yeah, me too. That's being here the last 3 years. It's like I miss Montana dearly, but yeah, in the winters. I'm like, oh, this is nice. I can walk out into
Yeah.
70-degree weather and wear my Birks. So
Today's especially nice.
yeah,
See the
beautiful.
islands today?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Driving, looking out. Yeah, it's beautiful.
So what was soccer culture like in Montana? I mean, it's on.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, kind of in the 80s and 90s. I mean, it's probably similar to like a lot of places around the country in that time, apart from maybe some of the hotbeds like we've talked about, Chicago, St. Louis, maybe San Francisco, New York, where you had a lot more international influence. But Montana being pretty rural, and not a whole lot of different or outside influence. I guess my dad being one. Most kids played soccer. Like it was heavy participation, but it was like through the YMCA or AYSO. And then they kind of, you know, about sixth grade, everybody moved. All the tough guys moved to American football. And I remember being like, okay, I'll give it a try. We were just kind of talking briefly about this. And I liked it, but I didn't like that. I remember distinctly, like they played me as a quarterback and as a running back. And my brain was already wired in soccer of like, every play is just going to be an option. Like I'm just going to read it and run, you know, like where it's open. And I remember they loved that, but also it's like, that's not the play, dude. You know, like, and they were like, I remember the coach giving me a playbook and being like, you gotta, here's our plays. And I was just like, I'm like not going to remember all this stuff. Like, you know, have it all scripted out. And there's
totally
a beauty,
different.
there's a total beauty in that, you know, of like, I think I've often thought from a coaching perspective, like being a coach in American football is pretty awesome because you can be really involved in the play calling, what's happening on the field. And soccer, you can to an extent, but really you're preparing your team in training to go out and play, and you're not, you know, apart from set pieces or whatever, you're not really having anything scripted. So that was 1 year, and then I was like, yeah, nah, I'm good. so
it was the playbook that was like, yeah, I can understand that. People ask me all the time if soccer has plays, and I tell them like it's like jazz. You have structure, but it's a lot of improv.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is like what I love about the game.
Yeah.
It's what I loved as a player, especially with like the ball at your feet, you know, it's how you're going to solve a problem on the fly with moving parts, which is not different than like these, you know, option quarterbacks, you know, the run pass option, they're reading a lot of stuff, and it's pretty similar that way, but we weren't running the option. So
Not back in those days.
no.
So, I mean, obviously you've been on very successful teams. Did you know early on that, man, I'm pretty talented as a soccer player and I want to keep trying this?
Yeah, I mean, my distinct memory, I was like 9 years old, and I was with my dad and we're watching the '90 World Cup. Like that was a point, and he had already at that time, you know, we take it for granted now. You can pick up your phone or throw your computer on and see anything from anywhere. But then he had one of his buddies who was a foreign guy who lived in California sending tapes of like Napoli and Diego Maradona so we could watch it when I was like, you know, 8 years old, and seeing that. And because satellites came a little later, and then of course there was no soccer on TV.
Unless you were rich, you buy the sports package.
Yeah, but no, even before that, like I think, you know, if you think about the late '80s, I remember when like the dish package came, you got a satellite, then maybe you could get like, I remember Fox Soccer Channel, but that was like mid '90s, so I'm talking like '88 or something like that. So it was like VHS tapes being sent in the mail.
Wow.
And and that was awesome. And then we watched the '90 World Cup, and that was on TV. That was on like TBS or TNT. And they cut to commercial breaks during
the game.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that's the only way they could probably hash out a TV deal to get the game on with advertising. So. I remember like watching the Italy-Argentina game specifically, and I remember all the commercials too. It was like Old Spice, Goodyear, Coke, just a handful of like the big sponsors, same commercials, and cutting to commercial and coming back. and Italy was up 1-0. And I was like, what? I mean, my dad were like, whoa, we were like, what? And then they show the replay during the live feed, and you're like, yeah, Schilacci, he scores, but luckily Argentina went and won, because but by that point I had become like a big Argentina Diego Maradona fan, just watching his like out of the world skill and his demeanor, how bold and brave he was as a player, was amazing. So we started, I remember that summer just like waking up for games. It was in Italy, so there was some early games and stuff, and yeah, great memories with my dad, like that passion. And then I was like, oh man, that's what I want to do, but being in Montana, it's like, okay, like how am I going to get there, especially at that time. And my dad, he coached me. So my first like club team was, I did the recreational, like the YMCA till I was like, I think 9. And then when I was 10, I played for the under 12 team. So I played up a couple years. And then in our first year, we won the state title, which was awesome. So that was like the first feeling. And my dad was the coach, and I don't think we were expected to win that year. Like there were some other towns in Montana, like Missoula, that had previously Bozeman, probably dominated, and we won. And it was like, oh man, it was a great moment, and kind of like instilled that taste of like playing, the passion with my dad, winning with the team.
Yeah. Good memories.
Yeah.
Really
like,
good memories.
So then like the problem was, so this team of like 18, 12-year-olds, we qualified for regionals back then. You'd win the state. If you won the state tournament, you go to regionals, and then you could go to nationals if you won regionals. And like half our team were signed up for a basketball camp during regional. So they chose to continue to go to the back. So we had like 10 players who went to Denver, played in the regionals, and we tied Alaska, speaking of.
Wow.
And it was the first time a Montana team didn't lose at regionals. And we tied 1-1, and we missed a penalty kick. It was like a Suarez deal. Like literally the kid handled the ball to stop the ball from going in the goal. He gets red carded. We get a penalty. It's like in the last few minutes, and we pushed it wide, You
You remember who took it?
Yeah, I do. He does too.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I've talked to like friends. I haven't seen him, but it affected him, man.
Oh,
he was a
yeah.
great player too. He was he was one of my dad's favorites too. Like such a hardworking kid, or a striker, or a leading goal scorer. The kid you'd want taking it, and then probably.
At least you didn't lose.
No, but exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the point. It's like we went. So now we're like, okay, we didn't lose at regionals. I mean, Montana, it was like, I can just imagine, the South, the Cal South teams, or whoever, North Cal, or even like, Colorado had a lot of good teams. Like if they drew Montana, they're like in the pocket, it's like, all right. So, so that was like but then, in 2 years' time, by the time I was 12, we split games at regionals. Out of 4 games, we won 2.
So you had won more
state titles.
And advanced to regionals.
Yeah, and then the one team that beat us, I remember Claremont Stars, and they were like, people were like, oh, this is one of the best teams in the nation at under 12, and they were really good. Like they beat us, I think 4-1. But that was respectable, I mean, for us, being a Montana team. And then we beat Nevada, and I think we beat Alaska maybe, and then we just lost to Oregon like 2-1 or something. But that was like, okay, now we were winning games at regionals. So to your question of like, yeah, it was like trying to forge a path. Like, how am I going to go from Montana to get to high levels? And I guess it started with like, at that youth level, and winning state cups, getting to regionals. I still had like the really hard challenge of like going to ODP camps, and like Montana wouldn't have a team oftentimes.
Really?
So I'd go in as like a, what did they call them? it was like a united team. So it was like overflow Cal kids who didn't make the SoCal roster, but they thought were good enough, and like a mash of kids. It's just really hard because you're fighting a bias, you know. Yeah. You're like a Montana kid. You've got Region 4 staff. Like, I don't know if this kid's gonna make it or not. But yeah, so it was funny. So then, you know, kind of did that through middle school, and then got to high school, and then that was kind of when I was clicking as a freshman. I was on the varsity team, and then I had a great season. We were close. We lost in the third and fourth place game at state, and I was selected as an all-state player.
Nice.
Where they just had like one team, so like 11 out of the whole state as a freshman. I think it was the first time that ever happened.
A freshman selected first
yeah,
team.
for first team all state. So that was like, that gave me a lot of confidence. I was like, all right, you know. And I had a really good group of players in that high school around me. And then my sophomore season came, and then we went undefeated and won a state title. So that was like, all right, now we're clicking.
That's awesome. Who was the coach of that team? Was it your dad?
No, it was a guy, John Driscoll, he was an outstanding coach. He didn't really have a soccer background. He had been a college basketball coach, and he was my PE teacher in middle school as well. But he was as a coach an amazing coach.
Yeah.
And
like a motivator?
Yeah, like very, you know, structured, well organized, good motivation. I think he managed the players pretty well. You know, when you think about high schoolers needing that. And I think, yeah, I mean, it was a tragic thing. I left Montana after my sophomore year, and my junior year, he passed away in a car accident with his wife. And his son was also a really good player, played for the University of Chicago soccer, and was older than me. And I think he was an All-American at the University of Chicago, actually. So that was just a tragic sort of thing to happen. But that season was amazing. Like, we went undefeated. We didn't lose a game. We gave up 2 goals the entire season.
Wow.
To one player. He scored both. And that record still stands, I think, 2 goals against.
For the whole season.
And what I heard, I don't know if this is true, but I know the guy Joe Hubley, because he was a teammate of mine as I became like a 13 and 14-year-old on the club level. But he became like an instructor at Top Gun in Washington, so I think he was in the Navy.
Okay.
So we always joked, like, we had a reunion, like we were like, well, we gave up a couple goals to a guy who became an instructor at Top Gun. Yeah, it was pretty good record. So. Yeah, but I think sort of as I was excelling and aspiring to play, it was apparent that Montana I kind of needed to break out of for like various reasons, like exposure to, you know, break the bias of what a Montana player is. And
did you always want to go to Indiana?
Yeah, it was funny. Like, Indiana and UCLA were like my 2 colleges that I wanted to go to when I was in Montana. Right. And so they were always like in those mid-90s years they were playing for national titles in the Final Fours, really, you know, had a great program. And then UCLA out here was probably one, like at that time, one of the best known programs as well. But, you know, I remember being a youth saying that, and people are like, oh, no, like UCLA only takes California kids. Like, you've got no shot. I mean, they might have been right, you know, like being from Montana. Like, there'd been a few kids that had played in college, like at Gonzaga, and then a guy that was a little bit older than me played at Oregon State. So it was like there were a few guys kind of breaking that and having some success into the Division I level, but like almost people, like the consensus was like, dude, you're crazy to think that you're going to go play for like a college powerhouse, Division I. You know, most guys from Montana were, if they were playing, they were like NAIA, Division III, like few guys that went Division I. So yeah.
Was that hard to hear? Like the people doubting you or doubting that it was possible?
Yeah, I mean, I think
Or did it fuel you?
I was a little bit conflicted because like when I was like, no, you know what? Like on the club side, we could go and have the success and beat teams. But then the hard part for me was the ODP because we'd go in and oftentimes Montana would host the regional ODP tournament. So it'd be in like Bozeman and like Cal South, Northern Cal, all these kids would come and they would destroy us. If we had a team, and sometimes we didn't, so you'd have to go see United player. But just the feeling, I have a funny story about it. One of the coaches, he was a college coach, and he was also on the Region 4 staff. And they didn't give any Montana kids really any time, at that time. And there, a little bit after me, a few guys got into like region teams, and one kid got called into the national team, just like a national team camp. But yeah, as I was kind of trying to battle that, it was like, yeah, you're getting dismissed. So on one hand, you're like, yeah, maybe they're right. Like maybe I won't have a shot. And then on the other hand, it was like, you know what? No, I think I just got to keep rolling. But at that point, too, my dad was like, let's get you out of here. Let's go find a bigger place for you to play. And my mom probably was like, no, I want him to stay at home, So, so as things turned out, my sister married Paul Petrino, who I was mentioning. The Petrinos are well-known football family from Montana. And at that time, both he and his brother, Bobby Petrino, were coaching for a guy named John L. Smith at the University of Louisville. And my brother-in-law, Paul, was at a fundraising event and happened to be seated next to my soon-to-be principal, lady Miss Sandy Allen, and they were chatting about sports and the history of Ballard athletics, and she was like, and our, Allen Houston had gone there, and they pretty well known for their athletics in Louisville. Basketball, football, but soccer, they had won the most state titles, I think, because that's what she was saying.
Interesting.
And then my brother-in-law was like, oh, well, and that's kind of how it started, that idea of like getting me there. And then there was a club called Javanon, which was started by a couple of Iranian guys. And that club was one of the best youth clubs in the country at my age. The 81s and 82s the 81s won the national title. And the 82s were like fighting to win regionals and getting really close there. So yeah, after my sophomore year in Montana, it was like, went to Kentucky.
Really?
Yeah.
So did your family move, or did you?
I moved with my sister and brother-in-law. And,
oh, wow.
Yeah. And it was like amazing years. They have.
So you lived with them?
Yeah. And they're at that time they had 2 children who were twins, my niece and nephew, and they were like 2 years old. So I came into a house with like my niece and nephew, 2-year-olds, and I was there. So I got to be really close and part of their
cool.
family. Yeah. And yeah, that first year was really tough, kind of like adjusting, adapting. Part of me didn't want to leave Montana and all my friends and the place and my mom and all that. But part of me was really also following the dream, so.
That's a big risk, like a lot of people, if you want to chase your dreams, sometimes you have to leave your community, and as a 15, 16-year-old kid moving to a new place, even without your parents, that's not everyone wants to do that.
Yeah, it was, I look back on it and I think, the paths in our lives, sometimes we can explain, or we really like made a choice or did this, but I think there were so many things that were happening that it was just kind of like pushing me to go that route. And yeah, I think, not to say when I got there. So like when I first got there, I was ineligible because somebody had lodged a complaint that the move was, athletic based, like it was recruitment and the stuff. So then I was ineligible for like 2 weeks. And then when I got in, and I was finally able to play. I rolled my ankle like over and over for like maybe a month and a half. So my first high school season wasn't great. Like, I just come from kind of like dominating the scene, winning the state title, plus playing against a lot of really good players. Like, when I first got there, there were these two kids from Ghana, Siba and Sumed, and they both ended up playing for Maryland, but they were like on that 81 Javanon team that won the national championship. And
they were your teammates or opponents?
they were opponents in high school, and then they were 1 year older in club, so we would like scrimmage them a little bit, but it was like immediate. Like, the level change was drastic, you know. So it was like making that adjustment, and then yeah, just being around like my Javanon team was a compilation of like the best kids in the state of Kentucky, not just Louisville and all the high schools, you know. So like the scale from Montana was just way different.
Yeah, the pool to draw from.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, international kids like who would come over, and yeah. So it took me a little bit to get my footing. I remember thinking like a couple times like getting injured, like wanting just to go back.
Yeah.
You know, as like a 16-year-old, like things aren't going your way, not the way I wanted them to go. But I stuck at it, and I was really lucky. My brother-in-law is a coach, so being close to athletics, like he was there. He would work me out in the mornings before school. Like, we'd go down to Louisville's football facilities, and I'd be, you know, doing that stuff, and then kind of getting my footing, and then things started to turn when we moved out of high school into the club season, because then I'm like with guys from all these who were my opponents, and now we're on the same team, and it's like, you know, sort of like the all-star group of the age. And then I started to like hit my stride, and we went and won the Tampa Sun Bowl, which was one of the big recruiting tournaments. And I had kind of like, I found my footing, and then the recruiting started really happening, and I started getting calls or correspondence from we were playing now. Like, now I was in front of like all the college coaches in the country, whereas in Montana it's like nobody's there. The only way a Montana kid gets sort of in is like somebody who's connected calls a coach on their behalf or whatever, you know, and it's like, hey, you should look at this kid. But yeah, so that was great. And we were winning state titles, and we won the state title, and we lost in the regional final at the U16 level, being up 2-0 in the 84th minute. So we were like, our dream was, you know, at that age, we're like, we're going to go to nationals, we're going to win nationals, because the older group had done that the year before. And then we blew a 2-0 lead in 84 minutes. They tied it in like the 93rd minute, and then went to overtime. We lost to the Kansas City. They were like, team from Kansas City. So that was tough, but it was still like a really good result, I think, for like, we beat the Chicago Sockers, we beat Scott Gallagher. Those teams had national team players. So we made waves. Like, I don't think we were expected to be the favorite. And then, I still remember like scored a great free kick against the Sockers, and like I think I drew 2 penalties against Gallagher, and that was all in front of a lot of coaches, right, that were probably there to watch, frankly, like Gallagher and Sockers, and we made waves there. So then that was good. Unfortunately, we couldn't finish it in the final and get to nationals. Otherwise, who knows, you know, where things would have gone. But so then I was like feeling pretty good going into my senior year. And still, even people in Kentucky were probably like, you want to play for IU? Like, I don't know, man. Like, they just won the national title in 98. Like, it's 99. We watch them. We go to the college showcase. We play in it. They repeat. And I got a call from Jerry Yeagley. I remember.
He called you.
And invited me. It was in the summer before my senior year. Invited me to come up to camp and play, and it's like, oh, this is sweet. And I was getting like, I think he had written me. I remember, like, I still have his handwritten notes and stuff, you know.
Awesome.
And so when this guy's, calling and writing, you're like, oh, okay, so this is actually could happen, and it kind of was like, I had to like pinch myself at that point, going back to Montana and where things had progressed quickly. And so I went to camp, and, in my view now, the Indiana camp and a lot of college camps do this. They'll have their players stay and be part of staff, and then they'll play staff camp games, and they'll put their recruits in as the campers playing against the staff who are actually their players.
Right.
And you get an idea. And I remember like, all right, I'm gonna play in this camp staff games, the All-Star game against their team basically, or the guys that have stuck around or that are in. And I remember Nicky Garcia, who was the captain, and center back guy that I would be going against, and jumping into those games. And I did really well, and he offered me a scholarship while I was there. So I was like, all right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was that? I mean, obviously it's a dream come true, but were you kind of expecting, hey, maybe he might give me a scholarship at the end of this, or just total out of the blue?
Honestly, no. I mean, I think about it. I think I was just trying to, as a player, trying to do, just improve and do the best you can and not really think about those other things. Because when you get wrapped into those things, that you can just, your mind can get totally taken away. And I remember that, like, I remember when one of my teammates was like, so after that summer, we go into my senior year, at Ballard, and we're like, okay, we want to win a state title. That the year before, we had a team out of Louisville that was really good. They ended up being the third ranked team in the country. High school called Trinity High School, had some really good players and some of my teammates. And we were like, okay, like, yeah, like if these guys can, they went undefeated, they beat us, and they won state. We're like, well, that's what we want to do this year. And so we rattled it off. Like we went 27-0. Yeah. And won a state title. And that was all like, I kind of had the assurance though, cause I think Yags had offered me at that point too, like in my senior year. So it felt good. And I was just like able to focus on what we were doing.
Yeah. You didn't have the pressure.
Yeah, but I remember somebody being like, I wasn't even looking at the other stuff, but somebody was like, hey, we're ranked 10th in the country or like whatever it was. And I kind of just like didn't think of it. And we just finished through, and, some of those other teams took losses and didn't go undefeated. And then we won it. And then we were the number 1 ranked team in the country.
Oh, yeah.
That fall. Yeah. So it was like, this is sweet. But like not even thinking about that as a goal or, being an All-American in high school. Like I didn't think about those things. And they were like, I remember a teammate going like, yeah, we're going to finish first. And I was like, it's like, you're going to be an All-American. And I didn't even think about that. And I remember like, I was like, you think? I was still in this like Montana mindset of like, this isn't going to happen. Just because it hadn't happened to people really there. And he was like, yeah, we're going to be the number 1 ranked team in the country. You're like our leading goal scorer. You're our best player. Of course you're going to be an All-American. It kind of was like, oh, wow. Like, and that did happen, so that was pretty awesome. Yeah. We had a 25th year, anniversary reunion, last fall. And like, it was pretty amazing. That team, we had 22 players and we had 4 coaches, and we had like 19 players turn up for it, and 2 of the 4 coaches get together, and we had like one of our players had passed away. So good percentage. Like it meant a lot, I think, to everybody on that team. It was a pretty amazing thing. You think back as you get older and you become like an old guy, you're looking back at like those fun days of high school and your youth. And so really then when I thought about Montana and my Capital High School team going undefeated, and winning a state title, and then going to Kentucky and having my high school team go 27-0 and go undefeated, then it's like, okay, well, now I know what to do at IU. This was, but it didn't work out that way. We were, I don't I don't know if there's been an undefeated Division I team on the men's side that's won the national title. But that was a goal, but it just didn't work out that way. But we had probably even a better story, honestly, as things went. So
that was your goal when you got to
well, it was
IU.
just the
You
goal,
might as
like
well.
my next team, like that's always my goal is like I want to go dominate, win, and enjoy it, you know, wherever it was. And yeah, but it was like, okay, there's added pressure because they just won 2 national titles. So that's the standard coming in as a freshman. I came in with 15 freshmen, and there were 5 of us scholarshiped. And at the end of that cycle of players, like from that class, I think we had maybe 2 of the guys that were redshirted still there, and then me as the only one who was scholarship that was still there. So it was high volume, and some stuck and a lot didn't. And that was just kind of the way it ran, because the next year they've got all the other All-Americans coming in, you know.
Why not?
So yeah, that was Yeggs. I mean, he had earned that, he had built it, and he had the privilege of everybody wanted to play there, you know, for the most part. And so yeah, it was super competitive. The environment was like, you go in, it was, I would hear from other friends who played at other places, and kind of like professional environment where you're not going to slide tackle your teammates or whatever. Like we had guys career-ending injuries in training, you know. It was hard. It was like we had fights happening on our training ground, guys throwing punches, and that just was, honestly, it sounds bad now, but that was part of what drove those teams to win. You know, it was like the environment was so competitive. And we had 30 some guys on the roster. So we'd always play our game of the week, which was not the game against an opponent. It was the game in-house with our first and our second group. And those were usually harder matches than the game we'd play on the weekend, you know. So that was a secret of Yeggs's program, one of them. So,
yeah, I want to get into it because obviously he's a legendary coach, and his son's coaching now. It looks like. But you know, to build a program, to have sustained success, like what did he do that, you know, you could tell, oh, this is why we're winning?
Well, I think he set an example just by his behavior and his demeanor. Like people talk about Yeggs as the godfather and of college soccer, and he just had a presence. Like he commanded a room. Like I often think as my life went on in adulthood, like the guy could have been a politician. Like he just had that presence where when he spoke, people listened, and he demanded that. And I think he probably like refined that because it didn't just start overnight for him. He had a club team for like 10 years before he even gained varsity status. And, you know, he was
club team at the college level.
Indiana's men's soccer team was a club team for a lot of years. And that's where I think he probably developed a lot of these leadership qualities, you know, like, and he talked about how he drove the van, his wife Marilyn did the laundry, like, and that was for 10 years. So his persistence and his resilience. And I think for him, a lot of people said, oh, it's never going to be a varsity sport. It's soccer, foreign sport. Because this was in the 60s too, before really things had kind of shifted with maybe the Cosmos or, you know, the NASL in those days probably picked up some momentum. But I think they got, I can't remember, I don't know the history exactly, but they ended up getting varsity status in maybe the early 80s or late 70s. And I would overhear him talking about just the challenges of convincing an athletic director or a president and the people that were really in it with him to make it happen. And I think he ended up showing, he like a lot of great coaches, he was an English literature major. This is, you know, well educated. He had a good grasp on sort of like the human condition and a psychological astuteness for like motivating people. I think that those were his really strong qualities. But I came in at the end of that, like he had already built this really impressive program and where everybody wanted to go to. But he came, I think once they got varsity status, I think they won 82, 83 back to back, something like that. Then they won a couple more, like 88, 89. And those weren't far after just gaining varsity status. So he did change things quickly and built a national powerhouse pretty quickly. And so coming in though, as a freshman, I remember opposing like other college coaches who had been recruiting me were like, "Are you even sure Jerry's going to be there?" That was like, he's nearing retirement. And I remember asking him, I said, well, I hear that, you may retire. And what he told me, he said, "I will be there for your entire career." And like looked me straight in the eye. And that was like one of the only questions I had for him,
A very important question.
Yeah. And I didn't even really think about it until I kind of heard some other people saying that. And so that was good. And then it ended up like my last year was his last year. But my freshman year, I was like one of the freshmen that traveled. I played in every game. I started maybe like a third of the games. It was like up and down, hard adjustment. And we didn't have a great year, but one of the characteristics of IU soccer is like when things matter, we get going. So I remember like finishing, we lost in the Big Ten tournament. We didn't win the Big Ten tournament. We kind of had a bad record. We were on the bubble to make the tournament. And then we made it, and then we rattled off a bunch of wins on the road. We came out, beat San Jose State, who was like a number 1 seed or top 4 seed at their place. And then we beat Washington. So we had to go San Jose, back to Bloomington, back to Seattle, played UW, beat them, back to Bloomington, to UNC, beat UNC at their place to get to the Final Four. And then we lost to Creighton in double overtime in a close game. So, that was great because, getting that experience playing in a Final Four as a freshman, it's like gives you a taste. We didn't win it. It was heartbreaking. We were all kind of distraught. And then my next year, sophomore year, ended up having a good season. And yeah, we were right there again at the Final Four, but we win. I actually scored the game winner in overtime against St. John's that put us into the final, and we get to the final. We play UNC, and like we were so flat. We played the second game on the Friday night. We got to turn around and play, the national championship on the Sunday at like noon for TV reasons or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they beat us. They scored early. They defended well. We ended up throwing everything we could, and I think they scored late as we were really pushing for an equalizer and lost 2-0. And that was like, oh man, okay, now, semifinal loss, losing the final, like pretty hard. But we always talked about, it's something I use, like the failure that we feel, we can use it to fuel us. And that's kind of what we were doing. But it took like a little like blip, because my junior year, then we had all these All-Americans. We had a lot of All-Americans. And we were, I think, the number 1 ranked team in the country in preseason, getting ready to go in. And that was the 1 year we didn't make it to the Final Four. I mean, we made it to the tournament. We had a great team and a good season. We went up. For some reason, we had to play UConn at their place, so I don't think we had a great record, and we didn't get the home seed to host that game because that was the Sweet 16, and there was a snowstorm. Conditions were tough. The field was completely frozen. I remember being like, we can't even wear like hard grounds on this. Like if you had like copas, you're sliding. It was like an ice rink. And I was like, and I remember we had a strong relationship with Adidas, and Yags did. IU Soccer was sort of like one of the like the marquee Adidas
Like ambassador.
sponsorships, I think.
Yeah.
Like yeah. So we got like a ton of stuff. Adidas was great, and he overnights, like our Adidas guy overnights the Copa Mundial turf, like with the little nubs to play on. But like,
did it help?
Not broken in. Like the shoes aren't broken in. I have like a square foot basically. I have really wide feet. I was like, I'm not gonna wear brand new shoes. But I remember being like, I think I might just wear my tennis shoes, like my running shoes on this field. And I told that to like some of my teammates because we were out there, and they're like, yeah. But I'm like, this is, it's a tournament game. They're like, you can't do that, man. Like, and I remember like not even wanting to face the coaches, but then like, especially after they overnight like all these shoes, and we get out there, and UConn always had like, they had some really good players, and they had some like African foreign guys who were wearing tennis shoes in that game, and they had an advantage. And I'm like, oh man, I should have worn my tennis shoes. Yeah. Like I still think back on that. We lost 1-0. I know. We lost 1-0 on a misplayed back pass to our goalkeeper that got nipped, and that was it. We were like, we couldn't. So then that's leading into my senior year, and I think getting so close to a national title, everybody thought that junior, that was like Pat Noonan, who's now the head coach of FC Cincinnati, and he was like All-American, great player, had a really good MLS career and played overseas too. We had a guy, Ryan Mack, who was a 2-time All-American, guy John Swan, who was like tough as nails, prototypical Indiana defender, All-American. We lost all those guys, so I was like, oh man, like.
So they didn't.
Now, are we going to win a national title? Or like, this is, I mean, like maybe this was our shot. But like I said, it's a constant, like, I think people would say like IU doesn't rebuild, they just reload, and that was probably true. We had like, we had some younger guys coming in, and so, but Jerry had announced that he was going to retire after the season. So we were like, we all knew. And to add the pressure, he needed like, I don't know what it was. There was some miscalculation in the number, but we all believed he needed, let's just say 17 wins to become the all-time winningest college coach in Division I history. I think to beat the guy at USF, the Stephen, I can't pronounce his last name. Neguesco, I think, was like, had won a lot of titles there. So we're going into that season like, all right, we got our task. We knew what we had to do, and we've kind of faltered out the gates. We're like 2-3-3 after maybe. Or 2-3-2 after like the first 7 games. Some good wins, but some bad losses and some draws that we probably shouldn't have drawn. And we're like, we don't have any room for error now. And we didn't have any room for error. Like we had to win out to the national title for him to kind of go out on top as the all-time winningest coach, plus with the national title. And that's what we did, which was like pretty amazing. And that was kind of, a little bit of a blur. We had some really good players. Ned Grabavoy was one of our top players, really skillful center mid on the attacking side. Danny O'Rourke, who had a really good career in the MLS. And Ned, too. I think Ned's maybe the sporting director of the Timbers now. Danny coached back at IU a little bit and coached in college. He had a really good career with the Columbus Crew. Drew Moore, who captained, I think, he's from Texas. I think he played for Dallas. He also played for Denver and Toronto. So some guys had like amazing careers. We had all those guys, and we kind of pushed it through. But like a side note on that, it was just like, I was just thinking about it, and I got an article. We lost Ned and Drew Moore, and maybe it was like Mike Ambersley too, who were with the U20 national team for part of the tournament. They went with the U.S. team to Dubai to play in the Under 20 World Cup, but we lost a big part of our team there. And our first game in the tournament, or no, that wasn't our first game in the tournament, but the Elite Eight game, where we had to step away from home and travel somewhere, was to come out to play UCLA. And UCLA was the number 1 ranked team in the country, and I think they might have been undefeated at that time. So I think people were a little bit like, I don't know if this is going to go. So And so we didn't have those guys, and we're playing at UCLA. And that's a game that I remember the most from that season, which was amazing. And like one part, we were in their stadium, in Drake Stadium, and like they had their music going on the PA, and we're doing our warm up. And then in came the IU marching band, who was always at our home games. And later we found out somebody anonymous had flown the whole band out, and they started playing, like, it just drowned out the PA music.
Awesome.
And it played like our home warm-up music.
That's awesome.
That's live band music. And we were just like, at that point, like, I think we all were like, still gives me goosebumps. I remember, like, at that point getting goosebumps. We were all like, we looked at each other and we didn't even say anything, but we're like, all right, we're going to win this game. Yeah. So that was sweet. So we won that game, and then we were able to get those guys back from the under 20s. Okay. Yeah.
Very helpful.
Yeah, really helpful. Yeah. And then for the Final Four, I think they came in right before I think the way it worked out, the U.S. didn't advance, so they were able to rejoin us.
Okay.
And yeah, good for us. And that was it, man. Yeah, it was like we went out on top. It was my last college game, and yeah, one to certainly remember. Yeah.
Who did you play in the final?
St. John's. Okay. Yeah, we played Santa Clara in the semifinal, and people remember on TV like the St. John's game because snow started coming down, and like people are like, oh, it must have been cold. But the Friday night game against Santa Clara, it was like single or low teens. It was in Columbus, so it was like cold.
Yeah.
And I think we played the second game that night too. So yeah, and we beat them. And then, yeah, we played that game on the Sunday, and the snow started falling. I remember I think we went up 2-0, and then they scored. They started getting momentum, and I remember like the last 15 minutes, they were just pounding us. You know how those games go, like the momentum. It's like, I mean, the snow is coming down, and we're just trying to see it out, and we were able to do that. And then I remember us, carrying Jerry off the field for his last game, and Todd, who's now the head coach at IU. Todd's a special guy to me. He and I bonded my senior year. He came in that year he came in and coached with his dad as a volunteer assistant, so he was part of that staff. And yeah, I was the only true senior on that team, and we had a really good underclassman. But Todd and I clicked from that point, and even before that, I went in with the regional team. Todd was playing at Columbus with the crew, and we were training at the crew's facilities. And like, I remember Todd came up, and, I was like, had come from Montana. Now I'm like in the crew locker room. We're playing against the crew. I'm with like the region team, and he was like really friendly. And I was kind of like, oh my gosh, this is, but that was the start of our friendship. And it's been awesome to see what he's been doing, because he won one in 2012, and then I think in the last, you might want to check this, but like the last 8 years, he's been in maybe like 4 or 5 national finals, but he hasn't won. He's been in a lot of Final Fours and finals. He's gotten close. to like, getting as many stars as his dad. Maybe I think he will. Yeah. So
that's awesome.
So that's the IU part.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's such a very special experience as a player, but I also want to know, like, we're both coaches now. Like what was that environment like? What do they do at the elite levels that we should be doing at the youth levels? What's obviously not the same types of things, but
I mean, some of it,
what's missing?
Yeah. I mean, some of it was a different time. I mean, some of it I don't think flies today at the elite levels.
Okay.
And let alone would ever have a place at the youth levels, But I think, I mean, Jerry was just like I said, he was like the presence. It was in his final 4 years, so I'm sure he was a lot more active in his younger years, but he was sort of just the overseer, right? And he had a couple other coaches that were the ones that were really hands-on in training. Mike Freitag, who had been his assistant for a lot of years, and then Caleb Porter,
right.
And then Todd, and I think, for me, I think just that, like I talked about, the competitive environment is great, but it can easily get, when things are so highly competitive, it can get toxic, pretty quickly. And I think, some of the guys I was, was able to be friends with, but I remember like my freshman year going in and getting like kicked by the guy whose position I was coming into. And it wasn't just like kicked. It was like, he's trying to injure me. Like this dude's trying to put me out of the
He wants your spot.
Yeah. And so I think
I've heard of that before.
Yeah. I mean, and I think those, I mean, so I think just that highly competitive environment is great, but certainly like any of the youth levels that I've coached at, I wouldn't want teammates trying to hurt each other, to benefit themselves. And really at the college levels, I wouldn't want that either. And I don't think at the professional levels you want that, because teams are invested in players, and you don't, you do want, it's a fine line, because you want competition, and you want, like, I think one of the best examples of this is like the Dream Team, right? When they showed the scrimmage between Jordan and Bird and Magic Johnson, and they're like close to getting in fights as they're scrimmaging. It gets really competitive, but they're also able to like maintain respect. I don't think anybody's trying to injure anybody, but I think, we played, at Indiana, we played a really direct style. Like we had a recipe where, Yeggs would get like, he always talked about the piano carriers and the piano players, and he always wanted that proportion, right? He didn't want a full team of piano players, because he knew that they might just get smacked in the face and not get up, and at the same time, you can't do it with all piano carriers either. You got to have, so he would really find probably 4 or 5 special players that could break a game open, and then everybody else had to defend, to work hard. You had to be an honest player. Even in those 4 players that had like a little bit of special liberty, like you had to reach a certain point. Like when I went in there, I didn't really defend coming out of youth. Like not until I was like a forward. I'm like, okay, you guys are going to defend if I get me the ball, and then we're going to go from there. But going there, we played in a 3-5-2 formation with really a true sweeper, 2 marking backs that would usually play against their top attackers. And then we'd play 5 in midfield. And if you played wide, you had to cover end line to end line. So you're up and down the field. So for somebody who didn't really like to run, I had to adjust. Yeah. I like to run when I had the ball, and I like to play, but I didn't like to run. And that was probably what maybe like held me back a little bit there is like there were some guys that were just engines that could get up and down the field and, launch the ball forward. And I kind of had this set idea of how I wanted to play and where I wanted to play, and the styles clashed a little bit, but the lessons learned were extremely valuable.
So what is it like, kind of both aspects, not always seeing eye to eye with maybe the tactics, and then maybe not always, being friendly with your teammates? How do you navigate that? How did you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I learned quickly, like, I'm not the coach. I don't get to dictate the style or the tactical game plan here. Like that's going to be the coach's directive, and if I'm not going to fit it, I'm not going to play. And I learned that my freshman year because I went in and I think I started like maybe the first few, like 6 games or something, or, and then I was like, yeah, I'm going to, like take risks or, look to play out from the back where we didn't take risks. I remember receiving a ball when I first got there in a game as an outside mid with pressure on my back and no pressure for the back that played it to me. And I drew the pressure and then I played it back as you would think you would do. And this guy like launched it and he looked at me, he's like, never play the ball back to me. And I was like, all right.
Yeah, it's different. It's different now.
I was like, okay, so now we're not going to take these risks. So everything's going to be played a little bit like direct into the channels, into the areas that we want to get the ball. Then we're going to do what we do. Yeah. And so it took me a while to figure that out. But yeah, I learned quickly, like if I wasn't going to tote that line, then I wasn't going to play. Like they called it Yeagley's Army, like that's, I remember like one of the posters, it might've been my freshman or sophomore year, they would do our posters, that had a schedule and they would put them up. I don't know if people do that anymore with everything digital, but one of them was like very much in like World War II war propaganda, and it was lend your leg to Yeagley's Army. Wow. And it like had his silhouette of his face and our schedule. And it was true though. It was like he ran it that way. Yeah. And so you learn a lot of things, even if you don't agree with them. Yeah. The competitiveness, like I found a few guys that I could have a friendship with off the field. But it was never like our whole, the team was, everybody was like, especially at that level where everybody's trying to get ahead, whether it was into the pros or into the starting group. But that might have just been me too. Like, I don't know. I'm a pretty social guy, but I think I found more of my friendship outside of the team that kind of helped balance those things. So.
Yeah, no, it's a task to be competitive and be friendly. Not everyone can do it.
Yeah, one of my best buddies growing up in Montana, we had a similar paths. Like he was an American football player, played for University of Washington, won a Rose Bowl, was a free safety. And he and I talk a lot about those days and the days before. And to your point, like once you go to college, like it's great and it's amazing, but you're not playing with your best friends.
Yeah.
You're not playing with the kids you grew up with anymore. And so for me, that kind of changed when I moved from Montana to Kentucky. But in Kentucky, I found a lot of really good friends, some of my best friends that are still today that I played with. But then when you go into college, then it's like you're only going to be with each other for a few years. Everybody's got a goal. They've got their interests.
It's different.
Things are competitive. It's different.
Very different.
Go
ahead.
No, I was just going to say and so when I really think about the best memories of the game for me, with my dad, the first state championship, with kids that I knew from kindergarten, first, second grade, youth that those are those really foundational memories of you're playing with your best friends that you're around all the time. And that's irreplaceable. And you still play the game and, love the game, but it changes. And I've always admired Messi's easy one to just single out and be like, man, exceptional player. But the thing that's most impressive to me is the way, despite, because I've just seen a little bit of it, like the pressure as you're advancing. And I can't imagine what he faced, but he plays the game like he's playing with his buddies in Argentina as a kid, you know, like, and Ronaldinho was another one. God, I'm looking at your Barcelona thing. So
I'm a Barca fan.
Yeah, I mean, Ronaldinho was like the smile on his face, like he's still a kid in the backyard, and not letting those pressures get to them. I think that's sort of the most impressive thing with people that reach those elite environments. Yeah,
I was just going to say, like, I was, a decent high school player too, and my high school coach suggested I go play D1, and I was like, I don't want that. Like, I want to play with my friends.
Yeah.
So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Totally, yeah.
So after this very storied career as a player, you've come back to coach, and you're coaching teams right now.
Yeah. So, really kind of got my... Actually, okay, so to stay connected to IU, so after that, like, fairy tale season, Yeagley's done. I haven't graduated, actually. But in my mind, I've graduated because soccer is why I was there.
You're done.
But I'm like, academically, I'm not going to graduate. And so I had to make a tough decision. And I had an agency out of Boston that wanted to sign me, and like, I would have just not got my degree, I would have signed with them and then gone into the pro ranks. But like, I had heavy family pressure. My grandpa came from India, did his education. My dad came to this country, got his education. And so it was like, okay, I got to get my degree. So I was able to take a redshirt year on my fifth year. So I didn't have any playing eligibility, but
you were on the team.
But I wasn't really on the team. I was like a undergraduate student assistant.
Okay.
So I still got my scholarship, which was great. And I trained the the red shirts and the non-travelers when the team would leave and the coaching staff would leave.
I see.
And so that was like my first coaching position, but these were like my teammates a year ago, so it was a little bit different, or some of them were. A lot of them were incoming freshmen, but that was fun. That was like my first sort of deal, and I still wanted to play professionally, so I got to train. So I would play on the second team against the first team, and then we repeated that year. So that was pretty amazing. And I always joke with those guys like Danny O'Rourke and Ryan Plotkin, guys who had like really. They were Herman Trophy candidates, and I think Danny was the Herman Trophy winner. I'm like, yeah, that 2004 team was good. You guys repeated, but the second team was better that year. Yeah, that's true, because we would beat them in training.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it would get heated. But like I said, the recipe is like having that competitive environment in house, right? Yeah. And so that's kind of the joke. But yeah, that was like Drew Moore and Danny O'Rourke. They won again that year, and I was sort of a coach, player coach, yeah. And that was awesome. But I still, I wanted to pursue playing professionally. So I went in and trained with a few teams. I had like trials. Like I went in with the Metro Stars in New York, and yeah, it was like then, going even from IU's elite level, I think mentally, I don't think I was like in the best place, and it was just a challenge. And so I didn't really stick at any of the teams that I went in. And I had some opportunities. So I was kind of like going back and forth between playing and then maybe coaching. And then I did some other stuff. Like I got wrapped up into the NFL. So then I ended up taking a job with the Indianapolis Colts, and that was funny. So there's some funny stuff about soccer with a good tie-in. I was telling you about the Grammaticas. So my college sweetheart, her family owned the team. So that everybody's like, oh, how'd you get this job out of college? Just put that out there right away, because otherwise it's like, So But her dad, Jim Irsay, he just passed away recently. Amazing guy. Like I have a lot of admiration and love for that guy, and the stuff that he did for me. But we were engaged, and so we moved back to Indianapolis.
Time out. Who's the woman that stands on the sidelines?
Oh, that's not.
That's not her?
Yeah, no. The girl that I was engaged to is Casey. Her older sister is Carly, who's got the headsets, who's getting
it's her sister.
Older sister, yeah. Yeah. And then, yeah, she was one of three daughters. So, but it was kind of weird. So I kind of felt like I was kind of cashing out of my dream, coming into the Colts, but I was feeling that pull of the relationship and her wanting to be back in Indianapolis, and not really an opportunity to play professionally there. And so I ended up taking a position with the team, and I just I was assigned to the special teams group. So I was on the football side with all the players, and amazing opportunity, and got to see the inner workings of an NFL team. And, Peyton Manning was our quarterback. Tony Dungy was our head coach. So just incredible players. A lot of Hall of Fame guys there, like Reggie Wayne, Marvin Harrison. I was kind of close to the Colts from.
So what exactly did you do with the special team? Teach him how to kick a soccer ball? I mean.
Yeah. So, no, I was just like, I would sit in the special teams would always have the first meeting of the morning.
Okay.
So because it's the largest group of players, so they would come in, and go over sort of a little bit of film, meeting, whatever. And then the whole team meeting would come in. So then Tony would lead that. And then you'd break into your positions. So then we would go in with, our, kickers, punters, and I guess the long snapper.
They're part of it?
Yeah. They would, I guess we wouldn't really have them in our meetings, but we would I would do a lot of stuff. Like I would chart our opponents, and cut video, kind of like some of these things. But then I'd be out at practice. And then I also was Jim wanted me to kind of like rotate through some of the departments. So I would sit in a sponsorship meeting, or like, this kind of brings it back. We had a in-house production group. So they would do a TV show, and there were a lot of guys, doing all, it was long before podcasts, but doing like interviews with players and that kind of thing. And sometimes sit in ticketing meetings. So I was just getting kind of this overall view of the team and organizational function. Yeah. I think he realized, he had 3 daughters, but maybe he was wrong. Like she's standing on the sideline with her headsets. But I think at that time, 2000, this was like 5, 6, 7. If you had 3 daughters, you probably need, maybe feel like you might need somebody that like a male presence of ownership that's going to be involved and be in the locker room, whatever. So I was kind of doing that. And
so you could have been the future owner of the Colts. That's what you're saying.
I don't know if I ever would have been the owner. I don't think I ever would have been the owner. That became pretty apparent. But yeah.
Was there kind of sidetrack? Like Tony Dungy was their coach and your coach Yeagley.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see similarities?
Yeah, I've thought a lot about it because, like even going back to like my dad being really my first coach, and then my high school coach in Montana that I kind of talked about. I think a lot about the qualities that they have, and then, going to Kentucky and one thing I left out was my high school coach was a national champion at Indiana, so that tended to help, and he knew kind of what it took, and that was
under
under Yeagley.
Okay.
Yeah. Damon Boots, probably should have mentioned that. Sorry, Damon, if he watches. Yeah, and then Yeagley, Todd, Mike Freitag, Caleb Porter, those guys, and then my brother-in-law being a really important person to me just in my life, and being a coach, and his brother and their dad, the Petrinos. So like I think a lot, and so now you're on like Tony Dungy and Yeagley. Tony had the quiet strength was the title of his book. And Yeagley had that too. Like Yeagley would raise his voice when he needed to, but usually didn't need to. Like he commanded this presence, of power. And much like the way Tony carried himself. Tony even more in sort of this, in my mind, American football was going to have these old school screaming, in your face. And certainly in the college game, that's how it was for a lot. In the NFL, it doesn't work as much when, the quarterback makes more than the whole coaching staff.
Yeah, seriously. Crazy.
But you kind of have the old school mentality. So I thought that might be, I didn't know Tony. I didn't know much about him. But then, interestingly enough, like we went into that season, and I still remember the phone call that came in. It was like at 4 a.m. and it was really rare that house line would ring. This was to the owner's house. So I was like, I woke up. And then that was when Tony had lost his son right before that season. And there was a time where like people didn't think he was going to coach. He's going to step away. So to watch him kind of have the grace and strength, like that quiet strength, the inner strength that he had for that season where we won a Super Bowl, and he was amazing in the way he led that team and commanded like respect and strength just in a really different way. I never saw him like raise his voice at any player, and I came from sort of an old school where guys would get ripped, and I think if your question's about similarities between Yeagley and Tony Dungy, that would probably be it. Like they didn't really need to command, like they didn't really need to like yell or scream.
Yeah.
I think it just speaks about the respect people have for them, right?
I was just talking, or I interviewed someone who kind of has the same thing, and I describe him as like being in control without being controlling.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's
an art.
Yeah. So that was really amazing. I would sit in every Monday, sit in with Tony. That was when the special teams would sit with him after the games on Sundays, and we'd review all the special teams plays and whatnot. And I actually remember one time I asked him, like, we went down and played, I think it was Jacksonville, and they beat us horribly that season. Like maybe like the knock was always there was no run defense. And they had like Maurice Jones-Drew just tore us up, and we couldn't stop them. And we had a bunch of special teams errors. One, like an up back, just missed his block, and a punt got blocked, and it resulted in touchdown. And it was like, and it was just kind of a careless play. It's like in soccer, it's like, if you're on the front post and the ball's whipped in, like your job is just to have the ball clear of the goal, and you're just like maybe not paying attention. The ball goes over your head, and then like this guy just ran past his assignment, blocked the punt, touchdown. And I remember asking Tony, I was like, what do you say? Like, what are you going to say to this guy? Like, I'm being fired up myself. Like, how could you miss that, And he said something to the effect of like, if I yelled at him, it's not going to do anything, And it just kind of was like, yeah, I guess I'd been around a lot of yellers, so
Yeah.
I kind of thought that was maybe the only way.
Yeah.
And then to hear him, and then also I think to be at the level of the NFL, like it's a business. They're grown men. Like nobody wants to be being yelled at or disrespected, you know. So yeah, that was like one thing. I just remember being like, I mean, the biggest thing of just watching him navigate the personal grief. And I think he probably realized that coming in, coaching, being part of the team, being part of the season was going to help him through through that. And what a special way, though. Like after that, I think after that loss at Jacksonville, a lot of people were like, oh, that's it. I remember walking through the building, people like heads hung, like it's over. But I remember feeling like, you know what, like this might be the pressure valve that needs to be like taken off for this team to go through, because they'd gotten so close years before. And then we always had to go up to Foxborough and play Tom Brady. Outside.
And so you were there for those years.
A few of those. Yeah, I was at some of those games, and it was the cold, the elements. They didn't play to our team being like an indoor bubble, like an inside team.
Oh yeah,
that had that offense that was so good in the RCA Dome, but wasn't maybe the best when you get out and there's wind and there's snow and you got to be able to run it and smash people and be pretty tough. So that year, though, we got home field advantage for the AFC. So the Patriots had to come to our place.
Okay.
And in that game, I remember we were down, like, I think it was down 21 points at halftime.
Dang.
So it was like, oh. And that was like, that game was the one that I remember really more than the Super Bowl. I mean, the Super Bowl was amazing, but that comeback in that second half was like, that's when I think people just knew that it was like kind of destined that the Colts were going to win that year. So
yeah, I mean, if you beat the Patriots, you got a good chance.
Get that monkey off the back, and like at home overcoming that deficit, like yeah. And then we played the Bears, but it's talking about special teams on kickoff. We kick off to like what was it, Hester for the Bears? Do you remember that guy?
Mm-hmm.
Devin Hester. He returns it.
Yeah.
Opening kick for a touchdown.
Oh, wow.
So we go right in, first play of the game, down 7-0. But there was never a panic with that team. I mean, I think still that's the thing with like Tony. I just think you like panic and that guy don't go together. The guy is just like quiet, calm, powerful. So that was pretty awesome to be up close and be able to like see him and what he does. And
yeah, do you have any more interactions with him?
Kind of just, yeah. I mean, I think I'll tell you a funny story. So when Jim Irsay had approached him about me joining the special teams, he thought that I was going to join as a kicker.
Yeah. It makes sense.
So he was like, he says, telling the story. He was like, yeah, I don't know. I think they were all like, did he kick in college? Like, has he kicked before? But it's like coming from a team owner. So they were kind of like, you know, whatever. But yeah, it's sort of funny, him telling that story. And it's like, oh no, he's just going to help with the coaching, you know. But we had actually one of the, I think, secret moves before that season was we got Adam Vinatieri to the Colts from the Patriots. And he was cool, and I had a lot of interaction with him. He played soccer. He was a soccer guy. Grew up in South Dakota or North Dakota. And so we kind of gelled with the Montana, you know, Dakotas, small town, small place guy. But he had like injured his, I don't know if it was his groin or his hip flexor. So we had like this weird situation with the special teams where he would kick only from 40 in because they wanted to save his leg. And they brought in Martin Gramatica to do kickoffs. They don't want Vinatieri doing kickoffs either, and anything outside 40 or 45 or something like that. And then Martin was also a soccer guy, Argentina. I think his family's from Argentina. And so we'd be like juggling a soccer ball inside the practice facility when like the rest of the team was out, whatever, doing what they're doing. Yeah. And the special teams isn't needed yet. So that was pretty fun. And then, so then we ended up winning the Super Bowl that year. It was a pretty memorable achievement. Yeah.
I mean, what else can you win? You got state champion,
a World Cup.
World Cup. Well,
so here, this could lead us into the talk, but I think, I got derailed on my coaching. So I did that. Long story short, things didn't work out. We didn't get married. I kind of went my own way. I went and played professionally in India. I got about as far away from here as I could, and kind of just needed to like get back to really like my own dream and what I really wanted and want out of life. And so played there. I played in Australia for a little bit, and I played with a third division team in Spain in the Basque Country for a couple months. But in between that, I was coaching. So funny enough, I'm coaching at Tudela FC in LA. And what brought me out to LA in 2011 was Jacob Tudela's brother, Josh Tudela, had just been released from the Galaxy and was signed by, at that time, the LA Blues. And he was like, come out and play for the LA Blues. So I came out. I was there for a season. I didn't play, but I trained, and then they actually wanted me to run their second team. And so I was like the assistant general manager. So I was still chasing like on field stuff, but doing more of the administrative stuff, and then the coaching stuff kind of was going on. So then I got into college and coached at the University of Montana on the women's side. That was my first time on the women's side in 2011, and then Northern Arizona University, and then Stanford in 2017. So speaking about world champions, I coached Tierna Davidson, who was a World Cup winner with the U.S. women's national team, Kat Macario, and there's some others that I think we'll see. I think Tierna is the only World Cup champion, world champion there, but hopefully we'll have some more in the next World Cup with the U.S. women's team, because I think Kat Macario, certainly, I loved coaching her at Stanford. That was really, like, she and I saw eye to eye and enjoyed the game. And we won a national title that year in 2017 with the women, and that whole group, like Andy Sullivan was our captain, Kira Carusa, who plays for the Wave and is tearing it up there. She was one of my favorite players to coach, really gritty, goal scorer. She's been playing for the Irish national team because I think she wasn't on the U.S. women's radar and went that way. So it's pretty cool. So now I'm, 3 years ago, I moved to California, and I'm with the Tudela FC LA club of the younger brother of one of my buddies. And I've got a lot of respect for Jacob. He does an incredible job as a coach and communicator, and he loves the same sort of style of the game, like bold, brave. Their dad's from Bolivia. They play a nice, skillful South American style, and they believe in that. So he's taken that to the girls' game in LA, and it's been a really cool thing on the development side, watching his first class go through. Of like, he maybe started as they were 8-year-olds, and now they're in college, and some are on the youth national team. Some have represented some pro teams, I think, and some are playing for a college national championship now. So he started that club in 2017.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And in the meantime, before all of that stuff, I was like, I had a daughter and a son. So in 2019 and my son in 2020. So they're 6 and 3. And yeah, it's been a big game changer for me. And the coaching has definitely changed. And so now I'm focused on the youth side. And I'm going to actually in Ojai run a branch of TFC, of Tudela football, but it's going to be Tudela FC Ojai. So we're just going to start with the young ones, get them going. And my daughter's already played in some competitive tournaments. She played up 2 years. She wants to play a goalkeeper, and she jumps in goal, and it's amazing. And I was like, no, not goal. But she said something. She was like, they were like, why do you like to play goalkeeper? And she was like, well, my dad likes to score goals, and I'm going to stop all of his. So I was like, oh, all right. Which might not be a bad thing. She's going to be a goalkeeper, and then my little guy, he'll be shooting on her, hopefully, if they want to play. I don't know. I'm not crazy like that, but I'd love it if they did. So, yeah, so that's kind of brings me full circle to like what I'm doing here. Now I was with the Fusion. That's how I met their mom. I came in 2018, and I was a player coach with the Fusion. And yeah, and I met my kid's mom from Santa Barbara. So
yeah, I've never met her.
Yeah, yeah. So we had our daughter in 2019, and then we moved to Montana, and we were there for 4 years, and then moved back. Yeah, she was wanting to get back closer to home and be around, yeah, her family and surroundings. So, you know, moms tend to win those. So, I'm you know, I like to win, and I'm competitive. And I like to dominate, not just win. Like I like to go 27-0, 12-0, like run it through. So the biggest lesson I've learned in the last 4 years is like sometimes you win and you actually lose. So I did want to stay in Montana. I didn't want to move here, but that surrender has taught me a lot. Yeah. The most important things. I think sometimes you gotta give up, not, I don't know. So
yeah,
learning that.
Surrender it's an important word. You can really grow a lot when you do that.
Yeah. So,
but you were trying to get back to Montana, huh?
Yeah, I thought.
I believe it. I mean, yeah,
for sure. Yeah, we were there for 4 years. My son was born there.
Same town.
We were in Helena. I was a finalist for my hometown, Carroll College, small NAIA college, where I'd been an assistant for a lot of years, or a handful of years, and I think the prospect of being there long term wasn't what was going to be best for our family. So, and that kind of brought it to light. So then we shifted here, and unrelated, Jacob Tudela just called me and was like, hey, he tried to get me to coach with them once when I was going to Stanford. He was like, this is what we're doing. We're doing something awesome. Like, so at this point it lined up and it worked out. So we shifted here to,
so you're going to be coaching in Ojai now though?
That, you know, for the last 3 years I've been commuting to like Studio City.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why when you were like, you got to get on, I'm like, I don't know when I can get on. I drive 3 days a week down there and back. And, plus, you know, my kid responsibilities, and I had 2 jobs, you know, I had a day job at a point. So, yeah, I still do some work with the Fusion. I work and run the Ojai Parks and Rec programming.
Oh, nice.
For Rambier, up there. So, yeah, it's good, man. I like the community. There's certainly, you know, I love Montana, but there's worse places to be than, you know, Ojai, Ventura, LA area. So
this was really kind of your first time here.
Yeah, in 2011. Well, 2011 I was in LA.
Right.
And then 2018 I was in.
Wow.
I was in Oxnard for a little bit, then Santa Barbara, then Ojai, and then we moved, and then we came back to Ojai. So I kind of knew, like, Ojai I was familiar with the area, and I knew that there could be a good life here for sure.
Yeah.
Outside of Montana.
Yeah, I've never been to Montana.
Yeah. But there is one more thing to win a World Cup. Right?
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I've sort of given up on the national team. I don't even watch the games anymore because they're so frustrating.
Easy to do.
It's like, how are these the best 11 players we have in this country?
Yeah.
And then we won.
Yeah.
And I still didn't watch the game.
Yeah.
But I was
the Uruguay.
I heard. Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard we won.
Yeah.
So.
I watched a little bit of like the highlights. I'm familiar with some of the players that played. I didn't watch the game either. But yeah, I think, man, I'll just say, okay, it became apparent to me in my coaching, and we kind of touched on this a little bit, like when I was at Stanford, it became, I think, clear, and maybe it swung back a little bit, but the players, there's a certain point where players got a lot of power. And as a coach, if you're trying to instill discipline or sort of like the grind that you're going to have to get through to achieve the excellence that everybody wants to, it's going to be uncomfortable. And it might not be well received if the environment doesn't allow it. So Stanford on the women's side had been, that team, that program, dominant. But they'd won one national title in 2012. But they had all the national team players. They would usually, if you looked at the record, they probably won more games than anyone through lots of years. But when I got there, in that Pac-12 schedule, you'd play on a Thursday and a Sunday. So really you can't train hard on a Wednesday, day before. Thursday, Friday, it's like a recovery day. Saturday's day before a game. Sunday's game. Monday's off. Tuesday.
One day.
That's the day.
Yeah.
That's the day you got to train hard. And I pushed that pretty heavily. And it wasn't received very well.
Really?
By a lot of the players.
Okay.
Sort of the ones that are there, who were older, because they had something different, and they were talking about periodization, and they're all smarter than you. They're at Stanford, so
can't beat them that way.
No, yeah. So they've got sound arguments. I don't want to get into a physiology debate. About the scientific methods of sports performance, because I'm going to lose to them. But I know what it takes to win a national title, and I know what it takes to win a game that's do or die on a Friday and turn around and lose it on a Sunday and win it on a Sunday, and like what it takes to be able to mentally to get through that. It takes being uncomfortable. And so I just watch the national team now, and I just see like a whole group of guys that you hear the old generation, and then you hear the kickback of like, oh, these old guys, they all say that. But like, they're right. Like a lot of that generation they've had multi-million-dollar contracts. They don't play a lot of games. Like they have that whole thing of like, and it's true. There's a lot to that, the scientific sort of sports science of it. Like you do need to rest, recover. Maybe we would have performed better had we had more of like the recovery mindset. But the mental edge, you lose. Yeah. And in the end, it comes down to the mental edge. Like you see the teams, like this qualifying and what it means to some of these small countries that haven't played. And you see like just these like last second goals that are being scored. That's what I love, man. And you can see how much it means to those guys. And like, they're not holding anything back, and I had a hard time watching the national team too. Like just seeing like people going through the motions. And that's why it was so refreshing to see like Luna injected, and like seeing he's got bite for sure. Yeah. And then, so with this last result, I didn't watch it, so I can't really speak on it, but these are guys that haven't had as much opportunity as some of the others.
Right.
And they get in there and they just kill it. Like, and that's what's going to win World Cups, that's what's going to win games. So I think that's something that they're probably all looking at when they but I don't even know how it works at that level. Like, because I wouldn't want to be a coach. I don't think, where like you're being mandated. Maybe there's so much like commercial interest that's involved with certain players and federation pressure. And I've heard stories of it on the women's side. And I mean, well, the last World Cup on the women's side, you know, Vlatko, man, that guy had a horrible job. I did not envy him because he had that whole senior group of players that still were playing and were selected. And I feel like if he didn't play some of them, like he'd lose his locker room. They had the power. They had like the power over the players, you know. So like it becomes really tricky, I think, when you get into those levels of, I mean, like Pulisic. I think he's an incredible player. I think he's very skillful, but like
he's also a superstar.
He's a superstar, yeah. And I think he there's places for the superstars to like shine, but not wearing the captain's armband. You know, for me, there's a book. This is a whole nother story. It's a great story, and I'll share it because it's funny. One of my favorite actors. It was an interaction. Benicio del Toro. He was at a wedding that I was at a wedding in L.A. and he was family friends with my kid's mom's family, and we like start chatting. Everybody's like, "Oh, Benicio del Toro." And it was like, but I think I went up to him and I said, "You were really good in Zorro." And that was a joke because he was in those Heineken commercials where people mistook him for Antonio Banderas. And he's like, puts his face down in his beer. So he was like, right after that, he's like, "Oh, that's a good one." So we started chatting and sports came up, and he brought my attention to a book called The Captain's Class, which I think you would find fascinating as a sports. He was like, "Oh, it's a must read." So I read it, and it's about you know, sort of the freakonomics of sports. Like they go through all the data, the most winningest teams, team sports, and what they had in common. That's the aim. And they find out a lot comes down to the captain. And the captain's not a superstar. The captain's that somebody's like pushing against the authority or the ownership or the coach. The captain's somebody who kind of like we talked about, just commands respect and holds a standard. And it's fascinating. I mean, it goes through like women's Olympic volleyball, the All Blacks, in rugby. I think it was like the Haitian or the Cuban women's volleyball team. These teams that like, and Jordan's Bulls don't even get into the top tier. They're like in the second tier. But I think as it relates to, I mean, I think a lot of it with Barcelona. I mean, Messi was the superstar for sure, but he wasn't the captain.
Puyol was the captain.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Like, and even when Puyol was gone, I think Xavi was the captain. You know, it was like guys that allowed the others to go on and do what they do, and certainly, I think that's been a little bit of a problem with the national team. It's like having maybe that. I think a lot of people say like Tyler Adams, and I like how physical and feisty he is. And without knowing kind of the inner workings of that group, it just seems like there's a little bit of that entitled attitude. And that's why it's fun to see this shake up with like new players coming in and seeing the results that are, you know, correlated with that. So
let's hope it continues.
I think they're into like one more game before the summer, right? They're going to play Germany. Is that right? I think I just saw that that's the last friendly that they've got before the summer. So should be
Germany.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that one.
Yeah.
I don't know. Germany can be flat sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and then I think also, I mean, probably the philosophy at Barcelona, even if you have these amazing players like Ronaldinho, Messi, like you hear from those guys like no individual is like greater than the sum of the parts.
Yeah.
And the German team's a perfect example of that. Like it's like the machine, and like they have amazing players, but then all of a sudden you see like 5 new guys, and you're like, who are these people? And they don't even stop. Like it just keeps clicking, whereas sometimes you'll see like Brazil or something where they like go either up or down by the way of their superstars, right? And so I think if the US can kind of figure out that foundation, I think might have some more success.
I think it's like confidence too.
Yeah.
I think the last full game I watched was some final between Mexico and US, like last year, like earlier this year.
Yeah.
And they lost like 2 or 3-0.
Yeah.
And like the analysis guy, they were like, "Oh, the tactics were all wrong." And like, there are no tactics. There's confidence and they're scared. And we were scared the whole game. You know, we have to become confident. Yeah. It's like I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's I mean, it's like part and parcel, right? Like you got to be able to do the work to get the result, to build the confidence, right? And like I think that's been part of the problems. Like they go out there and I think about that with like the English national team, like the
always underperforming.
Hype. Well, that's what they say because they believe the hype. Yeah. And I think that's a trap that the US falls into sometimes. Is like these players are now in the top leagues in Europe and but whatever, dude, look into like a number of like any little teams in CONCACAF and tell me like this guy on the Honduras team, like who is he playing for? Nobody knows. Yeah. And then watch him play, and then watch them knock us out of a World Cup or whoever, Guatemala. Like you could go all around the world that way and find these players. I think that's one of the fascinating things with the expansion of the World Cup. And, Curacao and like some of these 128,000 people in the whole country and they're qualifying but they're getting results too. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think as you go into those elite levels and the international level, like, like to your point, confidence is a big part of it. And,
we should have 4 U.S. U.S. teams: Southwest, Northwest, Northeast, and Southeast.
Yeah.
That's what we should do because we have the people for it.
I know. Yeah.
These smaller countries that are knocking us out.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
But it would be interesting. Like to your point, if they brought back the old ODP style, like where it used to be the 4 regions. That could actually be good to benefit our national team. And I don't know if they do that as much. The DA, the club scene's taken over so much. And like the MLS academies now. If you had 4 regions and like, I mean, I think that's a great way to create, like you said, 4 national teams. You have 4 region teams and you're picking the best 4 and then you're playing them and trying to get, a national winner or a national team formed from those groups. Maybe not a bad idea. ODP, it's funny. Everybody's like, oh, it was broken. And then I've heard a lot of people like, they actually had a pretty good model. Like maybe we should go back to it. Like you make your district team, you make your state team, you go try to make your regional team, and you make your national team. Like
it's really hasn't been a.
Now it's clubs, youth clubs. So
clubs.
So. We'll see.
We'll see. I'm excited because there's more opportunities now than there ever was for players. With the USL, with
oh man,
yeah. So, hopefully we can get our act together.
Yeah. Well, the more teams, I think probably the better overall, right? The more competition. I think the USL. It's an interesting thing. One thing I left out after I was done with the Colts, I went to Louisville and I worked with the founder of Louisville City. Oh, yeah. His name's Wayne Estopanol, and I was a special projects director for about 2 or 3 years in the early days of USL, having gotten the ownership that currently exists, and watching the growth of the USL and like the promotion relegation that they want to do now, and they want to. I think they've gotten sanctioned first division to play at the same level as the MLS. So they're going to bring, I think it was like somebody, I just saw they hired somebody that had like run a high position in the Premier League to come over to run sort of the new league that's going to rival the MLS. And,
Yeah.
you know,
It's good because MLS needs a shakeup.
Yeah.
You know, everyone needs a shakeup every once in a while.
yes, yeah, competition's good, and I think to bring it full circle into the NFL, one of my favorite stories from Jim Irsay was talking about the merger, and Lamar Hunt, who's done a huge amount for soccer in this country with the MLS founding and the Hunt Trophy.
Yeah.
And he just talked about it really, I think, lines up that the USL and the MLS could potentially merge.
Oh, yeah. It's going to happen.
Yeah. And then I think that will be a really good structure where things will be.
Then we can have the whole pyramid from top to bottom, and it all makes sense, and people have a real chance.
Yeah. Just the MLS owners who spend a lot of money will have the risk of falling down.
Yes. Well, that's the risk.
That's it. Yeah.
But, you know.
Yeah.
Can't be afraid to lose if you want to win.
That's right, man. Yeah. For sure. It's been awesome, Patrick. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Well,
Covered a lot of ground.
Thank you. I've been speaking with Vijay Dias of Tudela and everywhere.
Yeah.
Since we've so that we've learned from the Colts to Louisville to back to Montana. So I appreciate you coming on, and anytime you want to come back, you got such an experience.
Yeah, we can dig into some more of the
national team.
Yeah,
more stories.
Yeah.
All right, thanks,
man.